Here is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 8. Hi everyone. On this episode, or should I say in this episode, we're going to be talking about batching again. I thought I'd start just talking about rhythm activities first. Teachers tend to feel a bit more comfortable when teaching rhythmic elements. It's a bit easier in some ways than pitch elements. So I thought, look, let's just ease into this and let's have a chat about batching rhythm activities. So if you haven't listened to episode number 2, that introduces the concept of batching as I will refer to it. So it's just really getting into the flow of thinking about planning in one specific area, getting a whole lot of ideas down, keeping them in storage so that you can bring them forward when it's time to plan. So when I'm looking at teaching rhythm in your classroom, I'm not, in this episode anyway, I'm not looking at a strategy, not steps to teach something new. I'm not going to talk about teaching something from scratch. I'm going to assume that your students know the rhythmic elements. We're going to talk about ways to practice those known elements, because I know sometimes I get in a little bit of a rut. Do you get in a rut? You're sort of thinking, right, okay, I've got to do something with echo. I've got to practice tar and TT, or I've got to practice semiquavers, or like whatever you've done. And you go, okay, what'll I do? I have no time. I don't know, I'll do echo. I tend to fall back on echo sort of activities. Clever echo, which is when I clap something, they clap it back and add the rhythm. And I tend to fall back on that. No, of course I don't only do that, but I'm not nearly so creative when I'm under pressure, trying to do the whole lesson plan. I'm left it till the last minute, and what'll I do? So if I've done this work ahead of time, I can refer to where I've got that stored, and oh, what do you know? Here's a whole lot of really fabulous ideas that I can stick in my lesson plans. So let's add some interest by doing some batching in specific areas. The other advantage of doing this is that you're catering for varied learning styles, and you're going to help the students focus because it's something new and it's something exciting. The penny will drop at different times for different students. For some activities, all of the children will understand. Others you'll think, oh, okay, I've got that. Another one might need something more kinesthetic, something more on the oral side. Every student is different. By practicing in a whole lot of different ways, you're catering for all of these children. And let's not forget that it also keeps the teacher entertained, because we really have to be on and interested and excited. So isn't it fun if you can do something new and different with your students and not the same thing all the time? So I start by listing a whole lot of practice rhythm activities, a whole lot of brainstorming, basically. Now, this is very, very much like a complicated family tree. One activity can spawn several ideas, which then can have offshoots of ideas so that they branch into different ways in different areas, and there's subgroups and subgroups, and it's just not simple to organize. But give it a go. Just start with dot points, and if you go down a bit of a rabbit hole, that's fine. We're just thinking of new ideas, just list them out. So I thought what I'd do is I'd start with one of my little rut issues. I'm actually going to start with echo, because echo is more than just echo, more than just I'm clapping something, clap it back to me, right? It's a lot more than that. I clap, you clap. So let's look at ways that we can vary this. Now, if you're driving, or if you're on the treadmill, or if you're washing the dishes, don't panic about writing all of these down. They will be in the show notes. And also, what the team and I are trying to do is to turn the transcription into a blog post. So at the bottom of the podcast page on my website, you will see a transcription, but you can also find a blog post version of this. So don't panic about writing them all down now. They are all there for you. You can copy and paste. All right. So how can we make echo into a whole lot of interesting activities? So let's start by varying the length of the echo. Make them 2 beats, make them 3 beats, especially if they know 3 meter. But even if they don't, it can be unconscious. You can do 4 beats. You could do 8 beats. You could try 6. Make it as difficult as you like. So you can vary the length of the echo. You could echo with the whole class. You could divide the class, just put your hand in the middle, say this half, and this one side of the room can echo the first rhythm, second rhythm, the other side of the room, and alternate half class. Make little groups, indicate which group is going to echo you, but they all have to be listening and ready. You could do individual echoes. So just there, by going whole class, half class, small group, individual, you have got 4 different ways to just do echo. I actually, by the way, really like that division, the whole class, half class, small groups, individual. Almost every activity you can vary by having those different groupings. All right, you could play your pattern on an untuned percussion instrument. It makes it very different to just clapping. Use claves, use a castanet, use a triangle, use finger cymbals. Just by using a different instrument, you're changing the activity, as well as, of course, teaching timbre of untuned instruments. Now, we could get really tricky. You could perform your rhythm on a tuned instrument. Now, I'm just going to say tuned instrument. It depends what you've got in your music room. I tend to pick up the recorder, which is sort of usually sitting around me somewhere, go to the piano, set up a xylophone, like whatever you've got handy. If you happen to be a violin player, pick up your violin, your flute, whatever you've got, any tuned instrument. So we could break this down. What have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 different ways, just off the top of my head, that you could use echo with a tuned instrument. So 1, just play a single note. The children just clap it back. Now, that sounds really basic. You're saying, maybe some of you are thinking, well, what's the difference? I may as well clap it. Well, it is actually different. The students are hearing pitch and they have to draw the rhythm separate out of the pitch. I'm not saying that very well, am I? But you know what I mean? It is a very different activity. They have to clap it back to you. All right. They could clap it back to you and add the rhythmic pattern spoken. So if I played a note on whatever, do, 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 the first one I talked about, they'll just go. The second one, do, 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 ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. So even putting it into spoken, we've gone from pitch to spoken, and that's more difficult than it sounds. You could get the students to echo and they have to sing the rhythm on that pitch. So I'm playing, do, 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 do. They will sing back, ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. Clapping if you wish, or not clapping, just singing back. So singing back on that pitch. So we've just got 3 or 4 different ways of just playing on one note, different rhythms, different ways that students can echo. Now, if we now play a little melodic motif, on your instruments, this is really difficult, I think. Students ignore your melody and just clap back the rhythm that they hear. So if I played, oh, by the way, I've said played, but of course I'm talking voice. It could easily be voice as well. Obviously, that's one of your tuned instruments. I should have put that up in the list. Voice. All right. So let's say let's stick to ta, ta, ti, ti, ta, just to make it super easy. If I played do, 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 I want them to go. It sounds so easy. It's not. It's really pushing their little brains, especially the younger students. So you play the melodic motif, students ignore the melody and clap back the rhythm they hear. You could also play that melodic motif and the students sing back the rhythm to the melody they've just heard. Do, 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 ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. Now, those ideas, I should also make this clear that you don't do all of those different things in one lesson. Just choose one way to echo and do that. So there's so far, look, I'll just stop and have a little count because I've not numbered them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 or 9 things there that we've gone through that you could do for 8 or 9 lessons, which is just all varied echo, but I have not finished yet. Let's look at body percussion. So when I say body percussion, obviously clap, tap. Now I never know how to say when you hit your leg, pash, P-A-T-S-C-H. No, what is it? Oh, you know what I mean? When you tap your legs. So all of that different tapping, hitting your chest, your shoulders. So any body percussion. So the teacher uses body percussion and the students echo your rhythms using the same actions. All right, they're still echoing rhythm. You're just putting the pattern in different parts of your body. You could also do exactly that same thing, but as the students do it, they add the rhythm names. So that's certainly a lot more complex, especially if you're varying the body percussion a fair bit. You might use body percussion, but the students have to echo by clapping the rhythm. You could do body percussion, students echo by clapping and add the rhythm names. Teacher could clap the rhythm, just the rhythm, whatever the rhythm is, and the students use different body percussion to echo the same rhythm. I did this one recently and it was really fun. Some of the kids really got into being creative with where they put their rhythms. Like it sounds fairly simple, but the kids really enjoyed it. So using all different body percussion. And you could do just that. You clap a rhythm, they echo using different body percussion, but they have to add the rhythm names. So just looking at how we could use echo in a different way has given so many different ideas. Make your lessons interesting. So imagine if you did that with other ideas you've used for ways to practice rhythm. Just say, this is all I'm thinking about, just different ways of doing echo. So there was about 13, 14 different things there to do with rhythmic echo. And I'm not even counting using different instruments as different ways of practicing, and it is too. So you go ahead, plug one of those in each lesson, and you've got all these different rhythm activities for a whole term. But of course, I would not want to do 10 echo type activities in a row for a term. You want to mix it up. So of course, then you've got to look at different ways of practicing rhythm. All right. Then don't forget that there is batching that goes across the year levels. So you can use the same type of activity to practice the elements for each year level. But it varies slightly according to the year levels. So your year ones, the end of year one, might be just practicing tar and titi, and your grade threes, maybe they've got ticka ticka, and maybe your grade fives have tea ticka and ticka tea. But you could use the same sort of activity in the same week, so that really streamlines your lesson planning. Say if you're using flashcards, if you're using flashcards across the whole school, basically, it's going to make it easier for you. What I think of as the sausage factory of our job. So one class comes in, we squeeze it off, they're out, the next class is in. And we're just like doing this sausage factory all day. How much easier is it to know that the rhythmic practice activity for this week is basically something to do with flashcards? It's a matter of getting the other bundle, grabbing the other bundle. So that's easier than, say, grade two's doing something with flashcards, grade three's doing something with whiteboards and writing, grade one's doing something with paddle pop sticks. Or did I say grade one? Sorry, I'm not going to check. You get the idea, okay? So try, when you're doing your batching and looking at your planning in chunks, try and do the same sort of activity across the year levels. It really will help your sanity. All right. Now, before you even start your brainstorming for all of these activities, I want you to think about how you're going to record your ideas. I've already sort of alluded to that. I said just dot points, big lists. All right. You need some sort of a chuck those ideas in. But you do need something that you can add to really easily. Mine now is basically in an Excel file. If you use Google, you'll want sheets, I guess. And that way I can have headings across the top and down the side and different pages, and it can sort of grow with me and I can find things easily. So that works for me. Excel works. But obviously you have to do what works for you, but try to set it up so that if you get a few new ideas or you sit down and you want to just work in one area, you can open it and find it really easily. So let's have a look at some more rhythmic activities for your batching, because I don't want to leave you with the impression that I just do echo. I also don't want you to have the impression that I only ever do tar, tar, tt, rest. I just decided to use that as an example. That is actually a rhythm that really annoys me, by the way. Those of you who have been in a school where the classroom teachers do that as their behaviour management, get attention, and they clap this loud, fairly awful tar, tar, tt, tar, and the kids clap it back, and it's not musical and it's often rushed as it's clapped back, and it's just, I don't know, I've sort of developed a bit of an aversion to tar, tar, tt, tar. I don't know. Hands up if you're with me. Yeah. Okay. All right. So just so you don't think I only do echo, let's have a little skim over the surface, like this lovely bird gliding over the ocean, dipping into the water. Let's look at a few other things you could stick on your list for rhythm practice. By no means is this exhaustive. I just noted a few down, and I'm sure you could think of plenty more. And like those things with echo, I think you could take each of these and then go further down and expand each idea. All right, so here we are, little birdie, fly. Are you ready? Okay, let's take a little exercise. You've got some sort of exercise out of, I like the Kodai exercises or one of the lovely Denise Bacon books, something like that. So take an exercise. One, you could just read. the exercise or exercises. You could write them up on the board. They could be on video, whatever. Simply read the rhythm. You could then inner hear specific elements within that rhythm. So clap the rhythm through, but every time there is a tar, please use your inner hearing. By inner hearing, I mean we put the sound inside our head without saying it out loud. I also don't encourage them to make the shape with their mouth. I just want them to hear it inside their head. So they inner hear specific elements. Let's read it again. This time I want you to inner hear all the TTs. I want you to inner hear the ticketees, whatever it is. You could do performing the rhythm backwards. Let's start at the back. Let's perform the rhythm backwards. Let's have half the class clapping the rhythm forwards while the other half claps the rhythm backwards. That's loads of fun. You could even have them doing two different sounds. One could slap their legs and one could clap, or you could use percussion instruments. So like even then, go down that rabbit hole. You could probably write 10 different ways to do forwards and backwards, together. So lots of fun. You could memorize. You could put different rhythmic elements in different parts of your body. You know what I mean what I mean. So you could put the tars on your shoulders, the TTs on your head. Okay, that's what I mean. You could change one beat. You could perform it for the students and say, I'm changing one beat. Identify which beat it is. It could just be oral. You could get them to come up to the board and change it. You could then do it another beat and another beat until you've changed the whole pattern, or you could just do it once. You could perform with a rhythmic ostinato. You could perform one bar or one beat each around the group. Now, this is really hard to do musically. So you'll tend to have things very disjointed. So say to the students, no, I want this to sound beautiful. Legato, let's go around. It's lots of fun. Just clapping the rhythm, going around the group. Don't forget, you can derive the rhythmic pattern of known songs. You can identify songs and rhymes from their notated rhythm. Here's the rhythm on the board. Which song is this? You could identify songs and rhythms from their heard rhythm. So which song am I thinking of? See, I did da-da-dee-dee-da again. Go me. Okay. You could compose. Oh, good heavens, we could go to town on compose. You could give them the number of bars and what elements to use. You could give them the parameters you wanted. You could use a template or a worksheet of some type. You could use manipulatives. Paddle pop sticks are great. Matchsticks I really like to use with slightly older children. With the paddle pop sticks, with younger students, you could use paper plates to represent the beat. I think I love doing this when they first learnt about 1 and 2 sounds on a beat. It really solidifies that there's 2 sounds on this one beat / plate. So it works really well. So paper plates are wonderful to use. You can use the students themselves to represent the rhythmic pattern. So you could get out some chairs and you could work out what the pattern is and get students to sit on the chairs. Each chair is one beat. Of course, I don't know if I'd be trying to stick 4 kids for semiquavers, but it certainly works super well for 1 and 2 sounds on a beat, and even no sound on a beat. So you can get the students to sit on the chairs and then clap that back. You could also, I like using their arms. So you get them to stand up and then they put their arms on each other's shoulders to make the beam. So you can actually make the human rhythm. And I also like doing this when I first teach about flags and how quavers, I'm just trying to think for my American friends, quarter notes, what are they? Eighth notes. Okay. So eighth notes or quavers, when they're they've got their arms on each other's shoulders, that's the beam. But when they're not holding hands, they have a flag and the arm just is down out to the side. So I like using arms for beams and flags. That really helps them understand that. And all of those things with the children using their bodies, use another child to do the composing. So you get somebody out and say, now you decide how many children do you want on beat number 1 on this chair, so that the students can actually compose themselves. So that's a few ideas for ways that you can practice rhythm. And I'm sure I have only just scratched the surface. I'm hoping that you get the idea of what I'm trying to communicate to you about batching, how if you can get all of these ideas down, how much easier it will make your planning and how much more exciting for you as well as your students. And imagine, get all of those ideas down for rhythm. Then the next time you do it for pitch activities or for dynamics, and you will end up with these amazing lists to which you can refer as you are doing your planning. It will make it so much more exciting and engaging for your students and for you. So I hope I have given you a little bit of food for thought, maybe even a rhythmic practice idea you hadn't thought of. But even if you've thought of every single one, maybe just the concept of getting them all down in one place instead of racking your brains when you're doing your planning. I hope that has helped some of you guys. Thank you so much for listening to my batching rhythm activities episode. And I will talk to you next time. Bye. As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. I have a few jokes about unemployed people, but none of them work. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.